Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points. And today on the show, man, we're going to be talking about Darvin Ham. His Milwaukee Bucks won the in-season tournament or the NBA Cup or the Emirates Cup or whatever we're calling it. And then he immediately turned around and did an interview for Anscape, as part of a profile that Mark Spears wrote there, and had some stuff to say about the Lakers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I also want to talk briefly about the Lakers, the difference now in their attempts at making trades this season compared to especially last year. Talked to Jovan about that on his show as part of the second part of the home and home that he and I did over the last couple of days. And in like talking about it there, really kind of hammered home to myself, oh yeah, that's right. There is no excuse to not get anything done here. Which then would lead us to asking the hypothetical, if the Lakers don't get anything done in the next couple months, in the trade market, then it would serve as a pretty clear message to everybody how they feel about LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So a ton of stuff actually to get through here on the show. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments over the course of the show, leave them in the comment section there. Obviously, the best way to ensure that it gets answered in this live setting is to leave a super comment. But every so often I'll see a good comment and I'll click on it and I'll respond to it. Like this one, Ashley Larry Boy saying Ham still didn't take any accountability. Absolutely. Let's start there. So again, I'll go ahead and I'll link the article. The profile was good. Mark Spears obviously is a freaking legend doing this. So I'll go ahead and that link is there if you guys want to check out the piece. I did grab a few screen grabs of this piece, a few quotes that Ham had in it that I thought were notable, starting with this one. To do as well as I did, I swear to God, anywhere else, I'm probably looking at an extension with what I did, Ham said. I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about actual facts. They go from not making it to the playoffs to the Final Four in the NBA, the conference finals, and then you win the in-season tournament, navigate through all the injuries, and win both of your play-in games to get to the playoffs. People always talk about us losing to Denver, but they never talk about how we got to Denver. We beat a kick-ass young squad in Memphis, and we beat Golden State, end quote. None of what he said there is necessarily false. The one thing I would say, though, is, and this was, remember his quote that, he had a quote in that second year that he was with the Lakers saying that people were like living and dying with wins and losses, and that he, for whatever reason, he just didn't seem to get, understand that aspect of it. When that happened, I'm told that people from the Lakers, higher up, were like, hey, dude, you don't say that shit about the Lakers. What are you doing? So then he kind of stepped up and retracted a little bit. And, now like seeing that quote again, saying how anywhere else he would get an extension. Yeah, dude, anywhere else deals with a much lower standard. The Lakers expect excellence, and, merely making it to the Western Conference Finals and getting swept, by the way, and then merely making it to the playoffs the next year, like, y'all got worse. um, that isn't enough. So like that quote right there, honestly, is a pretty good summary on kind of a macro level of what Darvin didn't seem to understand and still doesn't seem to understand when it comes to his task of coaching the Lakers. Don't worry though, everybody. It keeps on getting better. The next one here, he goes, it's being reported like I'm just throwing some lineups up against the wall to see what sticks. No, man, we were really navigating a lot, from guys being hurt to having the oldest player in the league to navigating AD's injury history. It was a lot. Some of the shit that was coming out, wow, bro, I don't know X's and O's. I was winging it. Dude, that was the most disappointing stuff. How mean and so much stuff people were saying online. The best I could do was block out the outside noise. Sorry, Darv. Let's start with the first half of that, where he talks about the adversity that the Lakers went through in that second year together. You had LeBron and AD for 70 games apiece, like 70 plus games apiece, and both of them played at an all NBA caliber, at an all NBA level. You know how many coaches would give their right arm for LeBron and AD, as available as they were? And like the fact that you're sitting there talking about AD's injury history when AD was I think almost literally may have actually been the most available he has ever been as a Laker. And you're talking about LeBron James's age when he had the greatest late career season that we may ever see ever again. It's the same old bullshit. Like, it's the same old thing that we dealt with Ham when he was the coach of the Lakers. Everything is an excuse. Everything is some kind of wrong towards in his direction. Oh, the poor guys were so mean. The internet was so mean. Yes, dude. You ever been to the internet before? Yeah, man. You have LeBron James and Anthony Davis playing at the level that you had them playing. What are you talking about? People were mean to you. Like, people expected shit out of you. That's how it goes when you coach the Lakers, and you coach the Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. This idea that, like, yeah, people should have been nicer to you, fuck out of here. That's not how this works. As long as, like, look, there are personal shots that were taken at Darvin from some corners of the internet. I'm never okay with that. As somebody who has spent as much time on the internet as I have, where I had somebody a few years ago literally say one of the things that they would like to see, like it was like one of those internet requests, right? Meme requests, where somebody was like, what's a headline you would like to see? Out of nowhere, I get a mention from some rando, and he goes, yeah, the headline I would like to see is at Anthony Irwin LA finding his daughter in a ditch. I know how mean the internet can be. And I can only imagine how ugly it got at times for Darvin from people like that. However, this notion that, you shouldn't have been questioned from an X's and O's standpoint, that wasn't the internet, man. That was your star. That was Anthony Davis, who said during a playoff game, it doesn't feel like we know what we're supposed to be doing out there. That wasn't me. That wasn't Jovan. That wasn't Dan. That wasn't Kobe. That wasn't Lakers Nation. It wasn't Silver Screen. It wasn't for the most part, dude, we are very fair. Those of us who at that time, LFR was still like affiliated with the Lakers. There were things even they couldn't say. Like, you have thin skin. I'm sorry, man. Like, you were going to face criticism as head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and especially if you're head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and you're clearly underprepared night in, night out. Of course, people are going to hold your feet to the fire. Was all of it fair? Probably not, because the internet sucks. But the idea that, like, you should not have been questioned as an X's and O's guy or as a head coach or whatever, You know why people said that you were winging it or whatever? Because you were. I was told over the course of the season, and by the way, I reported all this at the time, and not once did a player like push back against it, or anybody behind the scenes push back against any of the things that I reported last year. None. One of the things that I reported at the time, and I said at the time, and I'll repeat again here, is that there were times where the starting lineup would be written up on the board, and Darvin Ham would walk in there and be like, I don't know, we're going to go ahead, scratch that name off and write somebody else's name in there. There was the time that I reported that like he was going to go with the starting group or whatever, and then he wound up not. The reason that I got that report wrong, and again, I'm not making excuses for myself, but the reason I got that report wrong is because Darvin all the time changed his mind on who was going to be playing when. All the time. Morning of the game, you never knew. Those guys, the Lakers players never knew who was going to be starting and who was going to be coming off of the bench. And if you came off the bench, when you would be coming off the bench. None of that was ever solidified over the course of the season. None. That's why those guys hated him so much. More on that in a bit. The time here's another example of this. The first story that I broke over the course of the season was Darvin benching D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves and going with that all wing lineup that they had. I think they played OKC that game. And the starting lineup was like Torian, Cam, Vando, LeBron, and AD. Either Vando or Rui, and then LeBron and AD. And I broke that story. And I was talking to one of my sources there, and I said, hey, this is what I'm hearing. And I got it confirmed. So then after I got it confirmed, I tweet out, hey, hearing some whispers, D'Angelo Russell is going to be benched, and this would be the starting lineup here moving forward. Somebody else from the Lakers, affiliated with the Lakers, texts me and goes, hey, man, you have this right. I don't know how. You have this right. But just so you know, Darvin changes his mind all the time. So you have this right now. The game isn't until tomorrow. Good luck. Because he could change his mind between now and tomorrow, and it happens all the time. And then it just so happened that in that case, he didn't change his mind. The Lakers did go with that lineup. Hilariously, if I remember correctly, they won. But still, like this idea, that the narrative of you throwing shit against the wall and hoping something sticks, that existed because it was true. The reporting on all of that stuff, not once, man. It's one thing for me to report stuff, and this was at a time when I was just breaking into reporting stuff. It's one thing for me to report stuff and then like have nobody respond to it, because at that time I was new, and I understand skepticism when it comes to people who are reporting stuff for the first time. But The Athletic, Jovan, in January, reported and wrote an entire article about the vibes coming from the locker room. And it was ugly, right? And not once did a single player like quote tweet the article or quote tweet any aggregation of the article or any response to the article with even like a cap emoji. It never happened once. Those guys hated you, Darvin. They couldn't stand you. Anyway, he continues on here. I'm not a mudslinger, and I'm not going to wait until I'm 51 to become one. Giant butt coming. You feel like you did enough to sustain one spot. I feel like I did that. I get it. The franchise I'm working for, the expectations can be unrealistic at certain points in time. To be 33-49 when I was hired with an unbalanced roster, turn that around, make it to the Western Conference Finals. The very next year, you were plus 10 in wins, going from 33-49 to 43-39, and guys got paid on my watch. It went from a lot of unknown scenarios to, I think, we have a little bit of a core. Then we got hit with the injury bug like crazy last season. We might have been top 5 in games lost to injury. End quote again. So, again, it's always excuses. It's always like, it's never at no point in this entire article do we get a come to Jesus moment, especially from somebody as famously religious as Darvin is. At no point do we get a single come to Jesus moment thinking like, look, I also, while all of this is how I feel, there were some things I maybe would have done differently as well. No, didn't happen. No accountability, no looking in the mirror, none whatsoever. And that, by the way, was one of the things that drove the Lakers, like the players themselves, crazy, was how every single game it was, oh, no, we got to be grittier. We got to run faster. We got to defend harder. We got to be more physical. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to do this. And never last year was it ever like, I should maybe reconsider this. I should maybe reconsider this. I probably should have called a timeout there. No, it never happened. Darvin was like absolutely allergic to any kind of accountability last season. And that continued into this interview, which, the big, I think, money quote from all of this was this one. Quote, I haven't talked to anybody. When we played them in the preseason, I said hello to a couple of guys, Jackson, Cam, D'Lo, Gabe, but not really, man. LeBron ran past the bench. We had a little bit of small talk. There is no ill will for me. Their situation is what it is. You want to know why you're not the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers anymore, man? Because you know the name, like you see the names that are listed there, right? It's D'Lo is the only member of that 5-man lineup that finally got run in the second half of the season. He's the only member of that lineup that gets mentioned there. Everybody else, LeBron, AD, Austin, Rui, none of those guys wanted anything to do with saying hi. Not even like a what's up, no dap, nothing. Nothing. You know how difficult it is? Like Anthony Davis, super competitive guy, all that stuff, but he is legitimately one of the nicest people in the NBA. You know how thoroughly you have to fuck up for Anthony Davis to be like, nah, I'm good. I see you over there. You stay over there. Like Austin is like, he regularly does pod appearances, even to this day, with like bloggers and shit. And is like still a crazy, crazy nice guy. Like I've gotten, I like it's just I'll get messages every so often, saying like, yeah, Austin checked out your show the other night. He laughed at X, Y, or Z, and it's like, wow, that's really cool and really funny. And also, Austin, I'm sorry in those instances where I criticize you. Austin's such a nice dude. For him to not mess with you anymore is like, yeah, that's a you problem. For LeBron, one of the most politically correct like athletes of his time, somebody who was very conscious at all times about like, yeah, I should probably at least go dap him up just so it doesn't look like there's too much bad blood. No, even he was like, I'm good. I'll run by. I'll say hi. Maybe that's it. Rui Hachimura is like a freaking saint. He's an absolute saint. And he's just like, yeah, nope, I don't want to do this. I'm not even going to pretend. That's your 4 best players, buddy. Your 4 best players even now want nothing to do with you. Last year was the same thing. That's why you're not the coach anymore, because you lost the locker room to such a wild extent that at no point, while all kinds of crazy things were being reported about your locker room, not once did a single player stand up for you. Not once. And now, after the fact, even like given the distance where people would be like, yeah, he wasn't the best coach, still kind of like him as a person. No, those 4 people are like, no, fuck that guy has a crew, a record label. Like, it's just, no. So when you're trying to figure out why you're not hired there anymore, you can't lose your top 4 players. You cannot do that. And by the way, I'm not saying, I'm not absolving them of blame here either. I don't think, I've said it in the past, I don't think it's great for the Lakers culture that the top 4 players can feel like it's okay to just quit on coach after coach after coach, or situation after situation after situation. I also think that's not great, right? I think it's bullshit that they quit on Frank the way that they quit on Frank. I frankly kind of understand them quitting on Darvin. But then earlier this year, it looked like they were starting to quit on JJ. And it's like, yeah, that's what happens when you form a habit of quitting. It becomes easy to quit. So like, I don't think LeBron and AD have been the best leaders in this organization. Obviously, the most blame lies at the feet of Jeannie Buss for never holding Rob Pelinka accountable for anything. And then obviously from there, Rob Pelinka deserves a whole bunch of blame for a series of completely imbalanced rosters. Like there's plenty of blame to go around in all of the situation. But I thought like this entire article, as at least as it pertains to the Lakers and him eventually getting fired by the Lakers, like, I don't know, man. Sometimes, like, I don't know how many of you guys have ever been at a bar and seen your ex at the bar, and you show up maybe a little bit later in the night, and you show up and your ex is like hammered, and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, that's why she's an ex, you know. Like if I were the Lakers, if I were the Lakers organization and I see these quotes after they had just won the in-season tournament, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, right call. There, there goes that X again. Enjoy to whoever gets that X next. All right. Let's go ahead and dive on into the next little subject here. That being an advantage that the Lakers have in compared to some of their competition going into trade season. And certainly like a big difference between this year and last year. The Lakers this season actually have a ton of expiring money. Last year, like even while I criticized the Lakers for not being able to get anything done whatsoever, all right, this Avarice Zero, I'll go ahead and I'll address you. Fine. This dude just went down a descriptive list, making an excuse for every single player without any proof as to why they don't like him. They didn't like him because he didn't prepare. They didn't like him because he didn't call timeouts. They didn't like him because he didn't actively coach. They didn't like him because his head got way too big after 1 year making it to the Western Conference Finals, a season that ended in them getting swept, and he came into the next year thinking he was completely untouchable and was clearly wrong. So you want to know why like players, the thing about like NBA players, they have been playing this game for their entire lives. The vast majority of them. There are exceptions, but the vast majority of them, if they have a problem with coaching, there's usually something to it. There's usually something to an entire team saying like, ooh, yeah, we don't mess with that guy anymore. And so like I'm gonna go ahead and believe the players in if they're that united on this front. So like it's when I say Darvin did a poor job last year, multiple things can be true. Darvin did a poor job last year. It was still an imbalanced roster, and some of the players didn't play up to the expectations that they should have. All of that can be true. But this idea that Darvin was some kind of victim in the way that he portrays himself is just, I'm sorry, man. And to those of you who keep on saying like, I'm guessing this Avarice Zero probably has like a Kobe background in his phone, and probably never really messed with LeBron all that much, as a chunk of the Lakers fan base has. But like this idea that because LeBron pushed for a Russell Westbrook trade, which by the way, Rob Pelinka was 100% on board with. And this idea, like I'm seeing this here too, Juan saying Ham was terrible, but JJ looks no different. The roster is not good. I said it all off season. This roster needed to be addressed and it wasn't. So like, yeah, to a certain extent, just because this, JJ has had to kind of fall into some of the same decisions that Darvin did. A, the process can look very different. B, the communication behind the process and the decision itself can look very different. And C, the results may not look all that different, which they don't. Like this idea that like because other things are also true, therefore it cannot be true that Darvin should be criticized for the way that he coached the team. That's patently insane. Like, it just is. So yeah, like, if you feel like slicing up the blame pie a different way than I do, that's fine, man. It's sports. Go for it. Like, what I'm saying here is not objectively true. But giant but, big but in big bright bold letters above me. But it does not change the fact that this interview does not make Darvin look particularly good at all. It just doesn't, you know. If he had even if it's just like, even if he didn't even mean it, which, he may not have if he would have said it or whatever. But all Darvin needed to say is like, yeah, like, I feel like I got the short end here. I feel like the Lakers didn't give me enough of an opportunity. I feel like this. I feel like this. He can feel however he wants. But if you also, all he needed to do was acknowledge, I probably waited a little too long to get my 5 best players out onto the court together again. All off season and all training camp, every memo that came out of the Lakers was like, yeah, we cannot wait to build on the continuity from last year for a change. And then guess what? Darvin goes completely away from the continuity right from the beginning of the season. So like, he can feel however he wants. He can say whatever he wants at the end of the day too. But sometimes when you say enough dumb stuff, you look worse in the interview. And I thought he looked worse in this interview. All right, sorry. Let's get back to the trade stuff and get you guys out of here relatively quickly. But yeah, last year I criticized Rob Pelinka at the deadline for not being able to accomplish anything. I criticized Rob Pelinka in the summer for not being able to accomplish anything. And what I would like, the one retort that people could have there to my criticism is, look at every trade that happened, and almost all of them, if not actually all of them, featured a sizable chunk of expiring money that the Lakers did not have to work with last year. And honestly, there is no retort to that. Like, that is where, Rob's favorite line is, you can't sell a house that isn't for sale. I think the bigger, or I think the more accurate version of that is like, you can't barter with tools or skills that nobody wants. And this year, however, that isn't going to be the case. The Lakers do have D'Angelo Russell's $18 million in expiring salary. They have Jalen Hood-Schifino's 3-point-something million in expiring salary. They have Christian Wood's $3 million of expiring salary. Jackson Hayes, Cam Reddish, Maxwell Lewis, all expiring salaries that can be stacked however it needs to be stacked to go out and solidify the rotation. And, you add that expiring money to the draft capital that the Lakers have at their disposal, and you combine those realities with the prices that these guys are all like, they're already being kind of rumored to be going for, right? Where like, the Nets are basically saying, Nets Daily reported earlier today that Cam Johnson and they're hoping to fetch 1 first rounder and a good prospect plus expiring money for him. Lakers could figure that out. I think Dorian Finney-Smith at this point, based on some of the stuff that I'm hearing, may not even go for a first round pick. Kyle Kuzma might not even go for a first round pick, let alone the 2 first rounders that Washington was expecting to get back last summer. Jeremy Grant. Now, I think Cronin might be stubborn enough to just like continue to bite the bullet and finish the season with Jeremy Grant on the roster again and see what the market looks like over the summer. But like, no team is going to give up 2 first rounders for Jeremy Grant. And I think we're watching it is still a seller's market, but the one kind of note that I would make there is because of how strapped for assets and how inflexible financially a lot of the buyers are it actually winds up being a bit of an advantage for those teams that do have any of that financial flexibility, let alone the combination of financial flexibility and asset flexibility that the Lakers can work with here going forward. And I would go so far as to say that the Lakers, given the number of players that are out there and available for trade, given how cramped and how inflexible a lot of their fellow buyers are going to be at the deadline, the Lakers should be able to address multiple issues in the roster without moving both of their first round picks. And that's all that Rob Pelinka, I think, has been looking for, is a market that allows him to address as many of the holes or check as many of the boxes as he can on this roster that, by the way, he created, without having to commit both of the first round picks that he has at his disposal. And, so like, let's talk about Cam Johnson, for example. I think he is easily the most sought after trade target on the market who isn't like a superstar, right? So he's not in that tier with Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, and Zach LaVine. But he is at the top of the next tier. And probably there's a bit of a gap between him and second place in that tier. But like, so with Cam Johnson, because of the likely bonuses he's going to hit this year, he counts against like $27 million. His cap, the amount of cap space that he takes up in a trade would be around like 27 million bucks. There are just not very many, if any, teams that are competing for the playoffs that have upwards of $27 million of expiring money and the pick necessary to get you in the door of that conversation. The Lakers are kind of sort of alone there. And like, yeah, Oklahoma City could technically just blow the Lakers out of the water when it comes to the pick package if they decide they are like desperate for Cam Johnson, which, by the way, isn't how Sam Presti operates. But like, I'm looking at Oklahoma City's books right now, and you kind of look ahead to what they have to offer in terms of expiring money, and it's you have Hartenstein, who they don't want to move, by the way, but he's on a whatever it is. I think he's on a 1-year, $30 million offer or contract. But no, take that back. He's on a 3-year, $57 million contract. So like, Brooklyn doesn't want that like money that far into the future. You could go Lou Dort, who has $16.5 million on his deal, but that's also a 3-year deal that he is signed to. There's just like they just don't have very much, if any, like big time expiring money. He's and they could make up for it by including an extra first round pick that the Lakers don't have at their disposal. But like, when you look at the Lakers options going into trade season compared to these other teams that are going to be factoring into those conversations, especially for somebody like Cam Johnson, who so many teams want, the Lakers do actually have a ton of or not a ton, but a pretty sizable advantage there over some of the competition that they have for Cam Johnson's services. I don't know if I would go so far as to say that like they should be considered the favorite to land Cam Johnson, because I don't know that I consider Rob Pelinka the favorite to land a trade target. I just, this front office has a lot of issues, and they are extremely gun shy when it comes to these kinds of decisions. And they are very susceptible to paralysis by analysis. But I do think though that like that the number of expiring contracts that the Lakers have at their disposal should like last year when the Lakers didn't get anything done, there was a retort to my criticism of the team. This time around, if the Lakers don't get anything done, there is no retort. There is no explanation. They just didn't get it done. What happens if they don't get it done? That final bullet here on the show, that would be a crystal clear message to fans, to the rest of the league, and most importantly, to LeBron James and Anthony Davis, that this front office doesn't actually believe that those two guys can compete to win a championship this year. And that the organization's focus here from here on out is going to be far more on preparing for the post LeBron and the post Anthony Davis era than they are on trying to maximize whatever is left of this era. And I think that'd be a bummer. I'm just going to be honest. I think LeBron and AD have more than upheld their end of the bargain. LeBron is literally holding off Father Time in ways we have never seen in basketball, maybe across all of professional sports. And Anthony Davis is, he's every day fighting against the reputation he has as a player who cannot ever stay healthy. Played 70 plus games last year. He's played he's played the vast majority of the games so far this year. Yes, he falls down and it takes him a long time to get back up, all that stuff. He does go back to the locker room probably a couple times a month. All true. However, when it comes to what the expectations were of LeBron and of Anthony Davis when the Lakers acquired them, I would say Anthony Davis and LeBron James have far and away held up their end of the bargain compared to the way that the Lakers have held up their end of the bargain with what you owe to superstars that come to your organization, especially at the low point that LeBron and Anthony Davis signed that dotted line to go to the Lakers for. Look, I think if no move is made, I would hope for some very pointed questions of Rob Pelinka and of this organization about the way that it is operating. But if given the amount of expiring contract at the Lakers' disposal and the number of picks that they have at their disposal, and most importantly, probably the reasonable prices that these guys are being rumored to cost right now, Dennis Schroeder went for 2 second rounders. That's nothing. That's less than Rui went for a couple of years ago. And Dennis is a starting point guard, is going to be their starting point guard. So you combine all of it, and there are not going to be very many, if any, viable excuses that Rob Pelinka and this Lakers organization can make if they don't pull the trigger on anything. And we'll see how that goes over. All right, we do have a couple starred comments here, and I will go ahead and play this bad boy to get to them. All right, first one comes here from Justin Tyndall. Ham makes me laugh, saying one of your players shut the bed, literally thinks he has to take no accountability, just making himself look like a fool. Yeah, if I were advising Darvin in that moment, you could take here's the thing. I'm really happy for Darvin that he landed on his feet and wound up going to Milwaukee and appears to be happy being an assistant coach, a role that he is probably best suited for. They won that in-season tournament. They've turned their season around. I think all of that stuff is cool, minus seeing Doc Rivers happy. Everything other than that is I think, cool. I think it's great that Giannis is back to being considered, one of the league's absolute best players after I think becoming pretty damn underrated over the last couple of years. All of that is really cool to see. I wish Darvin Ham no ill will. Like I don't love the way that he coached. I don't really respect the amount of time that he put in to being the Lakers head coach in that second season. And after these quotes, I certainly don't. I my opinion on the guy hasn't really changed all that much. But I don't wish for bad things to happen to Darvin or his family. Like at the end of the piece, he talks about like the amount of charity work that his family is doing. He is, by all accounts, an extremely nice person. One who probably wants to kill me personally. But like at the end of the day, if I were advising him from like a PR standpoint, I would have told him, hey, take the interview, take your victory lap on how happy you are with how where you've arrived in landing on your feet here. All of that stuff is perfectly fine. It's the kind of thing that like people will enjoy reading because that is a way to get back at the Lakers, something that like a lot of people seem to enjoy when people get back at the Lakers. But like I would have avoided every question looking back on your team, his time as head coach of the Lakers or his departure from the Lakers, like the plague. I would not have answered any of those questions. I would have said, or I would have been, about as bland as I could have possibly been, and just been like, look, they made a decision. I respect it. I'm here now. My focus is on the Bucks. And it would be bland, it would be boring, it would be all of those things. It probably wouldn't even make the piece. But I that's how I would approach that, because all of this stuff throwing dirt on D'Lo for disappearing for 10 games, or talking about how old LeBron is, or AD's injury history, which didn't affect you at all because AD was really available last year. That stuff only makes you look worse. Almost a year after the fact. Marley Villasenor writes, it's actually sad the lack of accountability that Darvin has. Deciding to start Prince Vando and Reddish for a string of games must be normal to him. Like it's just, I coaches tend to have God complexes. And look, like being a coach is really, really tricky. I did it at the extremely low level of high school sports or whatever. And even that, like getting questions from parents on their kids and the decisions that I was making then, I didn't handle all of those the best back when I was coaching. So like, trust me, I the amount of second guessing that Darvin was that Darvin had to deal with, I get how frustrating that must have been and probably still is. But if you want to be a good coach, and like I said this on Jovan's show, if I were hiring coaches and I brought Darvin in for an interview and I asked him about that situation, and his response was that like was all of these excuses and all of this finger pointing and none of the self-reflection, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hire somebody else who is capable of acknowledging the mere possibility that he makes a mistake or that they make a mistake. And, I wish Darvin nothing but the best moving forward, but I would want him nowhere near my program. All right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. In a second, I'll go ahead and record tonight's episode of The Lowdown. Those have been a lot of fun to get back to doing them, and you guys seem to love them. So hope you guys continue to check that out. Those are RSS feed exclusive. So you got to subscribe to the pod in its audio form, and you got to find those wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey. And the more subscriptions we get there, the more it helps the show here moving forward. But to those of you who watch this live, thank you everybody for tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button, and please tell your friends about the show. Tomorrow after the game, Raj and I will be here live, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this Darvin Ham stuff and about trade stuff. And then obviously we'll break down the game against the Sacramento Kings as well. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, Have a great rest of your day. Everest, I appreciate it. I'm fine with the back and forth. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Here's Avery.
Bye, everyone.